What's up, fam? It's your boy Demuir here, purveyor of all sounds underground. Thank you for joining me on this YouTube Thursday, where today we'll be talking about how I manage drums in my DAW. But before we jump into the specifics, what I need from you is that SLC. Subscribe, like, comment, and hit the notifications bell to stay in tune with the newness that we got coming to you each and every week. So this video came about as a result of a tweet that my main man Mark Farina answered to Defected Records about who has the best drums in house music. And to my surprise, he mentioned me, and a lot of other people agreed with him as well. So I thought it'd be a great video idea to share what my approach is like. Before I jump into the details, I must tell you that my inspiration for great sounding drums and electronic music range from guys like Harry Romero, Kenny Dope especially, and Todd Terry, just to name a few of the dudes that I love. Tripmasters and DJ Sneak as well. And I love how they manage drums because all of those guys are very sample heavy. Harry Romero in particular, I know he does a lot of great and interesting things where he brings in live percussion and records them, and you can hear the swing in his tracks. So I'm going to share with you how all of that has influenced my approach within my DAW. All right, so let's jump into things. My approach to drums. I would say first and foremost, when it comes to having good drums, is the sound quality of the sample source, or the source of the drums, wherever you're getting it from, whether it's live or from a sample pack situation or from a vinyl record or another track that you chopped up in a certain way. It's very important that the sound quality of the drums are where you expect it to be. It can't have a lot of different noises in it and things from an EQing situation that make it horrendous. The other point is, and I do this all the time when it comes to drum management, is making sure that each instrument in the drum tracks are playing a certain role. So if I have intro beats, that has a certain amount of the frequency spectrum shaved out, which you'll see in a minute, to ensure that if there were a kick in that particular sample, it's not out there blaring exceedingly loud. It's playing a specific role where that main kick is out, so when I'm coming in with my set of low frequency sounds like a kick or some low toms, you're going to feel that taking up that part of the frequency spectrum. So let's jump into things. So this is a track, The Day the Moon Collapsed. I put this out a couple of years ago on Kerry Chandler's Mad Tech Records. I enjoy this song a lot, and there's a ton of drumming instruments in here. I counted about 9 to 10 different drum instruments or drum related instruments playing a role here. So first off the bat are the intro beats. Now usually with the intro beats is a simple EQ that I do, shaving out the low end, and it's just cueing stuff. So it's a sample and it's playing the role of just very light kick and the snare punching out. So when DJs are cueing it up, they can hear the stuff. That's what I'm imagining that's happening here. So it's 32 bars of that. After the first 16 bars are completed, I'm introducing a top end drum break, and you'll hear that here. And then you'll see it in the EQs. So this is the intro beats. You'll see the bottom end is shaved out nicely. So anything below 160 hertz are shaved right out. And then the top end beats, it goes even further. 360 hertz are shaved out, and I just leave the rest doing its thing with a little bit of a scoop in the mid-range to mid-high range, just because I know I'm adding other instruments that are going to occupy that space later. And you're probably saying, well, if you're only doing that for the intro, why does it matter? Because it matters because the same sample is what I'm using for the main drop. So I'll just play that briefly here. So you don't hear all of the other drums, but you can hear the difference in that versus this, where the low end is pretty much out. The other thing with the drum stuff that I do, I like to keep things interesting. So this sound is from a different part of the top sample, but I just chopped it up, and that's why you see it kind of hitting every so often. I really just wanted to isolate the muted cowbell that's in there, and it worked pretty well. That one, however, I think required a very drastic EQing approach, shaving out 360 hertz, and I really boosted the mids here. I would not often do this, for the record. I've learned my lessons from yesteryear, but it made sense in this situation. So 7 and 4, almost 5 dB boost on that particular one, just to get that. And altogether, again, it makes sense, right? And it just works. So there you have intro beats, and then main drum loops are here. I don't stop at that. I think the key to having great sounding drums and electronic music as well is having good dynamics. And in order to achieve good dynamics is, having some good layering things happening. So I did that with the kick. I'm going to, actually I'll leave those in. I'm going to just A-B this for you just so you can hear the difference. This is a kick from Punchbox that I've now added in the main part of the song structure after the initial drum beats. So you can hear that, just filling it out slightly. And let's give the Punchbox kick some special attention here. So you can hear it's what I would call a click sort of kick, but there's a number of things going on here. I don't do this too often now, but in this particular track it was necessary. And so the things that I don't do too often now are like adding the click. Some people call this giving the kick some head, and here's why. I'll let you listen to the difference. So that's it on, and this is off. Back again on. And the reason why you would add some head or a click part of the kick is to make sure it cuts right through. This is a bass heavy track. I haven't even gotten to the the low sub basses. You'll hear that later on in this tutorial, but that's specifically why it was there. So in combination with a bit of distortion to add some harmonics, it all just makes sense and cuts through. So when it's combined with the main beat break layer, you can hear things just cutting through. And then, some of the top end stuff, that isolated muted cowbell with the crazy EQ that I put on it. So that is the kick part. You'll see that, again, everything has its role. So in the main beat break sample, it's taking up the low end, and I'm adding a clicking type of kick sound to it. And on this point, when it comes to kicks and making sure they have their role, because this was like a kick that I wanted to make sure to cut through things, I shaved out 30 hertz and just gave a light boost in the upper frequency range so you can hear that click piece. Very simple EQ there. Machine Pad 3, so this is an open hat, and this is a great example of ensuring you have quality sounds. So this open hat, I'll let you hear it here. Just make sure. So there's the open hat, along with the Punchbox kick. sense. But you'll see the EQ I use on this one, I've shaved out right up to 750 hertz, because even though it says it's an open hat, one would expect, oh, it's just going to play in the upper frequency range. But if I scale this back, you'll see there's activity here, like as low as 200 hertz. So for me, it was important to make sure all that is shaved out, and that plays its specific role in the upper frequency spectrum. Now let's go to what I love to call my main snare, or a lead snare. I think in any sort of drum work, and Kenny Dope does this very well, like he when he presents a snare to the track, you know, like it's things are hitting. This is what it's all about. So this particular snare works well for me. And again, I tuned it to the key of the track and the other sounds. So let's just isolate that snare. What you're hearing is the open hat. And I learned something great here when you're working in the box. I was reading an interview with Mr. G, who makes, fantastic techno. If you don't know of him, please check him out. Just really powerful music. And he said, it's actually okay to have instruments clip in a track. So some of you guys are looking at this, geez, man, that's almost 5 dB over. But it really just comes back to what your ears are hearing. And because it's in the box, it's not, there's, I think it has to do with the integers. I'm not too technical here, but in the box sort of mixing, a little bit of clipping is fine. It's not going to completely ruin the track. And I got to this using the Maserati Drums EQ. It's lovely. I highly recommend this EQ for drums. I don't use it too much, and again, it depends on the situation, but it worked here. Just really nice on this particular snare. I'll do an A-B here. So that's it with it off. You can hear that. Adds a bit of presence to the snare itself. The other thing I'm going to highlight here is when I add other instruments, I like to make sure things are swinging. I always have a little element to swing. So here's some closed hats, and what I did here is I pan one side of the hat to the left and another to the right, just so it's hitting off. Most of the time I'd have it straight down the center, but even though yes, I understand it's drums, having some panning to add a bit of width to things is not a bad thing. And then I have another layer here for the snare. So it almost acts like a clap, filling out the mid part of the drums. And this is very deliberate, and it's in how I EQ'd it. So it's a sample loop that I got, and I just isolated the snare part. It just works well. So I'm going to now play all the drum pieces together. Add the kick, punch box. I think I'm missing another instrument. Oh, open hat. I think that's everything drum related. I got it. It just makes sense. Now, I'll play the bass part. Hope you can hear that. It's quite low. And there's some other sounds here.
Okay, hang on just a minute then.
hear it.
Okay, hang on
Crazy.
just a minute, Stan.
I think this is almost like a sweeping sound. Yeah,
Oh,
and there you have it. That is my approach to handling drums. Again, very important. You select really great sounds and from clean sources so it doesn't present too much of a challenge for you in EQing situations. The other thing is making sure that each sound plays a role in the frequency spectrum so it sounds dynamic. And depending on things, I tend to bust my drums out to this compressor. I didn't have to use it in this particular track because just the way things sounded. And I always default to just my ears, like based on what I'm hearing. Does it make sense for me? Does it feel right? Some people make sure they got a compressor on everything, and I think that's a huge mistake, and I'm glad I made that early in my career. So really nice soft compression when needed to manage the dynamics from Shadow Hills. I opted for the 250 US plug-in option versus the nearly $8,000 hardware option. So I hope that helps you. Please hit me up with your questions and your thoughts. Make sure you like, and more importantly, hit the notifications bell to stay in tune with other videos we got. Much love and respect. Peace.